Hey, yes, good evening. This is Mr. Lately, and I am back with the Journal 3 improvement video. This took place after I observed Ms. Hassett's classroom as we introduced the SPICE strategy to our A Push U.S. history class. I want to start off with a reflection of the observation that I did on Ms. Hassett. The teacher effectively used the SPICE strategy to help students analyze historical data, just like we said, in historical documents. Um, and we seen the students do just that, and they were able to structure it um, as they were supposed to. Students were able um, to put and identify each category, whether it was social, political, economic, cultural, technological, etc., etc. They were able to identify that and to know it and to learn it and specify it. Um, they did a really, really good job at doing that. Student engagement was very high, which is always a good thing. What teachers would like to see when they are in their classrooms. Students were actively engaged. They were talking amongst themselves, to talk aloud, to think pair shares. All of those things were good, and that's all because Ms. Hassett did an extremely good job laying a foundation about the um, spy strategy. I think I did a good job kind of showing and modeling it, just a small portion of it first before Ms. Hassett actually implemented it and started in the class. So that was a good thing. We did have some areas of growth as it pertains to the students. Some students still needed support identifying to connect the categories. So, for example, they may have the category that says social, but they are having a difficult time to read and find everything that's social. So we did reconstruction. For an example, we did reconstruction, and so we had a group. Once they was broken up into groups, we had a group who had social, and they kind of struggled to find out what's the difference between social and what things were social during that time period and what can they add, and etc., etc. So we did have a couple of students who struggled in that area. um, we had a couple of students who kind of struggled a little bit explaining the overall theme or the overall purpose of the category that they chose, and so we just kind of had to reiterate and kind of go back over it, etc., etc. But again, Miss Hatcher just did a good job, just kind of reassessing, redirecting, re-explaining what the strategy is and what the students should do. I next want to go over the 4 steps, which is confirm direction, review progress, um, invent implementations, and plan next steps. And so for the confirmed direction, it says, given the time we have today, what's the most important thing for us to talk about? And I believe it's just students just demonstrating mastery. If they're able to understand what the strategy actually is, um, do they understand what the categories are? Do they know what spice is, etc., etc.? Just some things that you just kind of want to check out the box. We get so deep sometimes in wanting the kids to do the deep search and to kind of just find what those meanings are in those categories. But we also kind of want to just know, do they even know what social mean? Do they know what cultural mean? Do they know what economics mean? Okay. Um, Getting students to write better. That's always just been a goal. That was Ms. Hassett's goal at the first beginning of the semester, is having kids to be able to write effective DBQs and LEQs, and something like the SPICE strategy can serve as a benefactor for helping kids write effectively in essays on DBQs and LEQs. So I want to shift over to review progress. And so it's just a couple of questions that's listed in Knight's book that we should all just kind of go over. And one of those questions was, what has gone well? And I think the number one thing that has gone well is just collaboration and just sitting down with a teacher and just exchanging ideas, exchanging strategies. Can we both use what we know and put it together and make something? And me and Ms. Hassett did that this semester. Um, what are you seeing that shows this strategy is successful? We have exit ticket data. And so after the strategy, we did have a set of questions, just basic questions about the SPY strategy. Do you know what social is? Do you know what cultural is? Do you know what chunking is? Can you explain chunking? In what ways have we used this before in the class? Just a small little exit ticket just to see if they knew what the strategy itself was. What progress has been made towards the goal? More students and understanding the academic power of chunking. A lot of students don't realize that um, chunking kind of helps. Instead of just kind of reading one, two, or three big paragraphs, four big paragraphs, can we chunk each, every two or three sentences and pull out, key terms and understand what those terms are and, what's the impact of just those three sentences as it pertains to that one paragraph or 5, 6 paragraphs. And so chunking is something that we're going to be definitely using in the future a whole lot. What did you learn or what surprised you? I think what surprised us most is just the high level of engagement. Um, you typically sometimes see, well, at least I do in my classrooms, when it comes to um, just pairing students up, putting them in groups. I tend to not be very successful at that, and I'll admit it. However, um, with with the Spice strategy, and with Ms. Hassett kind of just explaining thoroughly how it should be and just giving instructions, I think it was very clear, and I kind of think that helped with the student engagement. Just the fact that the kids seen clear and concise directions and was given examples on what to do, kind of just increased their engagement. And we did see a lot of competition kind of take place. We did see a lot of students having camaraderie and saying, "Oh, we're going to be able to get enough information or more information um, in our cultural category than you are going to get inside of your political category." And so it even went as far as students having 2 and 3, sheets of chart paper and just kind of bragging at the other groups who had 1 or 2. And so that's just something um, that I just kind of picked up when I was just kind of observing the classroom. Next, we're going to move to invent implementations or improvements. I'm sorry. Do we want to keep this strategy? Yes. I think this strategy is going to be like a baseline of what we are going to use as far as improving students' writing abilities on LEQs and DBQs. So I do love the strategy, and I think we should just definitely keep using it. And like I said, it should just be a baseline. Hey, this is our strategy. It worked well with Mr. Lately and Ms. Hassett, and so let's just keep it. Let's keep it, and then make improvements if need be. Do you want to choose another strategy or a new strategy? No, I think since we just kind of introduced that strategy, I think we should just keep it until we can make improvements. And then the last thing is plan the next steps or the next actions. When should we meet again? Weekly collaborations. That's what we do now, so we just keep it the same way. Um, I'm sure every week we'll have some new idea that we can kind of add to a strategy or to this strategy. And so we just want to keep that time consistent. We want to keep the time consistent. What task have you done before, or what will we do before we meet? I think it would be advantageous for us to review standards. Not only just review standards, but kind of just review some pre-assessment data. Excuse me. So we'll kind of know who we're working with, what students' strengths and weaknesses are, and then we can be able to use that data to kind of collab and kind of drive instruction when we need to. When will the task be done? Of course, we're just going to keep it a weekly collaboration. So these tasks will be done weekly. Who will do them? All lead teachers and coaches. We'll have all lead teachers and coaches to do the task because they are the most experienced, and so we'll show those teachers who may be less experienced, or maybe teaching a different part of social studies. We'll just share that with them so they'll know, they'll look at it, and then maybe they can just kind of use it in their classrooms. And on a scale to 1 to 5, how committed I would be, of course, it would be a 5. I actually do really love this strategy, and I do think it's an effective strategy even for an AP classroom. I do think it is an effective strategy even for an AP classroom, because you still have students who may struggle with writing in even classrooms like AP, U.S. history. We're going to be moving forward to the criterions. On criterion 1, teacher implements the strategy. Yes, the teacher did implement the SPICE strategy. Criterion 2, data is gathered by teacher or coach or student. Progress towards the goal. Students were active, and I list a number of these. Students were actively analyzing documents. Students was organizing ideas and putting them in paragraph chunks. We did see that students were able to explain how evidence can support a claim, and you would need to be able to do that to write any effective DBQ or LEQ. And so we smiled from ear to ear when we was able to see a demonstration of that in the classrooms. Criterion 3, data is gathered by teacher or coach on implementation of practice. And so usually this is just the checklist. This is basically the checklist that we use for Journal 2. And Ms. Hassett did execute all of everything on the checklist. The lesson objective was clearly stated and aligned. SPICE categories were definitely embedded inside of the assignment. Teacher explicitly explains the SPICE T strategy to the students multiple times. It was visible, it was explained, it was visible to them, it was on the board, etc., etc. And she provided guiding questions. And so, like I said, I think because it was just it was perfectly executed, the students' level of engagement was very high. And so that's also something that teachers everywhere would just like to see. Criterion 4, coach and teacher meet to confirm direction and monitor progress. Yeah, we both did agree that the students were able to just meet that goal, or we was able to see some success in the SPICE T strategy. And it's just kind of going back to that goal that Ms. Hassett had set at the beginning of the year, getting kids, or students rather, to write effective DBQs and LEQs. Criterion 5, teacher sets up a time to implement the practice. And so since it's at the end of the year, we've just kind of decided to implement this practice again next semester, which would be the start of the next school year. We do believe that we'll be both teaching AP US again, and so we typically give an assessment towards the end of August. It's a good bit of time students to be in school for about 3 weeks. And so it'll be nice to implement this same strategy, or a strategy that's congruent to it right before an assessment. Okay, this will conclude my video, and that is it. So thank you.